All right, I think we're live. Push one in the chat if you can hear me. All right, welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 867. Please hit the like button as you come in, share the video if possible, and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust. There's a docket in the description beneath the video for you to follow along with and reference. If you want to join the panel, there's a Zoom link in the chat pinned to the top. Make sure you update your Zoom link or your Zoom client before joining. Let me get started with the first item on the docket. The first item on the docket is from WSB TV, talking about the tech village in Atlanta. Let me play this clip for you.
Develop whole blocks of downtown Atlanta. Some Atlanta-based tech investors are taking over after previous company pulled out. Channel 2's consumer investigator Justin Gray live in downtown Atlanta to show us the scale of this project now. Justin.
Yeah, we're talking about dozens and dozens of buildings after that European investor pulled out. You can see these along Hotel Road. They've already been renovated. They're just waiting for tenants. You can also see the Benz right down the street here. That's why these tech investors, all Atlanta residents, say they have moved in, their first big foray like this into major real estate.
The Mercedes-Benz right there, the Georgia Dome right there.
So you want to see this be a major pedestrian corridor in Atlanta?
Absolutely. Particularly right here, right? South Broad.
It's 52 buildings, most of them boarded up and vacant. Also acres of parking lots, all in the heart of downtown Atlanta, what used to be some of the city's busiest streets.
Every great city in the world has an active, vibrant, safe downtown, and it's Atlanta's turn.
I took nearly this same walking tour almost exactly a year ago as the German investors, Newport Group, who had gobbled up all the real estate, laid out its vision. But Newport Group pulled out, defaulting on nearly $100 million in loans. And now the technology investors of Atlanta Ventures have stepped in, officially taking ownership of this massive chunk of real estate last week.
But you guys are thinking residential for quite a bit of this.
Yeah, absolutely. So almost no office space. Housing.
Where the previous owners planned on constructing new high-rise apartment towers, Atlanta Ventures plans to focus on the historic buildings already here. And they've already started this week with the downtown campus of their Buckhead-based Atlanta Tech Village, office space for startups, now officially up and running.
We had 77 people sign up from Buckhead alone who were interested in coming down here, and I already have applications for another 25 new members.
As Atlanta-based investors, John Birdsong tells me Atlanta Ventures is in this for the long haul and has a target of the World Cup right next door in 30 months to show big progress.
The stadium is right there.
5 minutes. 5-minute walk.
We are doing real estate at startup speed, so that means that we are opening up as quickly as possible.
And back here live, this is the first look at what they're hoping for, more of this ground level retail. They also say a lot of this space perfect for startups as they move out of those co-working spaces. They can take a larger area to grow their company. All this, of course, right by Mercedes-Benz, right by multiple market stations. We're going to continue to track this for you, see how things go. Again, they're setting that 30 months out when the World Cup comes right here to downtown Atlanta as a date to try to get some life to this part of town. Reporting live in downtown Atlanta, Justin Gray, Channel 2.
All right, there you have it. Um, I think that this is actually going to be fundamental for a lot of these Black folks who wanted to actually get their startups off the ground, because we know that there's a lot of financial gaps and equity gaps in Black founders. And so the idea that all these people are going to be coming down there just makes a lot of sense. And the fact that you have this major event coming, this soccer event coming in, makes a lot more sense too, because foot traffic equals revenue. So I'd be interested in seeing how this all plays out over the next year and a half. This is going to be very interesting. All right, let me get to the next item on the docket. All right, next item on the docket is from TechCrunch. Tulsa's tech scene remains resilient amid state's anti-DEI efforts. Oklahoma took a stand against diversity, equity, and inclusion. Last month, the state's governor, Kevin Stitt, signed an executive order defunding DEI efforts in public colleges and universities and banning it in other state agencies. He said the move would take politics out of education and encourage equal opportunity rather than promising equal outcomes. Affirmative action itself has been banned in the state since 2012. The latest executive order does not target student organizations, but it does ban state resources from being used for diversity training, and asks for a review of current DEI programs to eliminate any non-critical personnel. Oklahoma is following in the footsteps of Florida, Texas, South Dakota, North Carolina, and Tennessee in attempting to curb DEI initiatives at public colleges. But public colleges aren't the only ones being affected. This is part of a broader backlash to DEI efforts that have become prevalent in many industries, from technology to academia to fashion. Supporters of DEI say these initiatives help everyone get ahead, especially marginalized communities that have been historically disenfranchised. Critics call DEI-related work a form of discrimination. The hardline stance Oklahoma has taken against DEI is at odds with the efforts of its Tulsa Tech Hub. For the past decade, Tulsa has been trying to attract talent from all over the nation. It's also, most notably, trying to rebuild Black Wall Street, a once prosperous Black business neighborhood the white supremacists bombed in the 1920s. Trey Baker, managing director at Tulsa Techstars, said that the executive order does not materially change business on the ground. The city's ecosystem has become accustomed to dealing with constraints since affirmative action was banned in the state back in 2012. The government also has no control over private investment decisions. He said it's as simple as not publicly announcing any preference for one group over another. Quote, "The problem is not the law. The problem has always been people making investment decisions," he said. "When we empower more Black investors, more Black founders will get funded. Still, others are afraid this could dampen the appeal of Tulsa that attracted people to the city in the first place." Nicholas Lala, the founder of Tulsa Innovation Labs, said that much of the Tulsa tech scene was built with inclusion in mind, and that the executive order is counterproductive. He moved to Tulsa in 2020 to work for the George Kaiser Family Foundation, a major investor in much of Tulsa's tech scene. He then went on to launch Tulsa Innovation Labs to increase opportunities for entrepreneurs in the city. Though he has since left Tulsa Innovation Labs, he said diversity, equity, and inclusion were always part of its founding mission. There is an underlying There is underlying tension simmering between Tulsa's tech hub and the governor's office, he said, and the executive order could possibly harm Oklahoma's economic prospects. Quote, especially for a state that already struggles with perception issues around inclusion, he said, the order does nothing to create jobs for Oklahomans. And worse, it sends the wrong message to outside tech talent and investors. Diversity is a core attribute of a thriving innovation economy. But what about the Black Wall Street neighborhood? Would a DEI backlash affect the efforts to rebuild? Kelsey Davis, a founder of the hiring platform Collective, said Black Wall Street will continue to rebuild itself and leverage the knowledge and wisdom that has sustained it this long, despite the century of racist attacks it has faced. Davis moved to Tulsa 2 years ago and bought a house on Black Wall Street, looking to build value and equity in the local community. The area has seen changes, she said, and the anti-DEI backlash can only hurt it if it makes people divest from fighting for equity in their own community. It's necessary that we examine ourselves to ask what we are individually doing to help restore and maintain the freedom and access towards wealth creation that our ancestors had 103 years ago, before the massacre, she said. We must also continue to consider what economic liberties were sacrificed for social progress and reevaluate how to achieve both in the modern era. For the most part, though, and for many, it's just business as usual. Local leaders can't get distracted or discouraged by naysayers, Lala said. Tulsa just needs to keep doing what it's doing. I find this interesting because you have a lot of people in what we call the Black manosphere talk about how structural racism isn't an issue for Black people, right? It's some boogeyman elected official that needs to be primaried. Well, reading this article and reading the statements from the people on the ground, they would argue otherwise, that the structural racism is the anti-DEI efforts, is the anti-affirmative action efforts, is the governor's mansion weighing down on top of people who are disenfranchised financially and economically from the very opportunities that exist in other communities. But let these people tell the story, they'll tell you that structural racism isn't the problem. So this is where we are right now. We've covered Tulsa before, Complex, and welcome to the panel.
Mike, what's good with you, man? How am I coming through?
You're good, bro.
Okay, I'm on the East right now. But check it out.
Yes.
I find it ironic, right? You know, feel how you feel about DEI or what have you, right? But there's a bit of irony here, the whole sort of right of our financial sector that existed there at one point, only to then pass a measure that says, hey, listen, we just want to ensure that there is a playing field that is open to everybody in this current time, given that you destroyed what you had, some decades ago, and there's never really been any sort of comeuppance. Recall, Mike, if you will, that reparations for that was denied. It was voted down. Recall?
Yes.
So, thought I'd throw that out there.
Yeah, and that's a good point that, the very people that needed the reparations the most were the ones who were discriminated against from having access to it. In fact, one of the members died recently, I think in the last month and a half. I think that person was like 107 years old. And so, Oklahoma definitely has its perception about what it thinks is progress. And based on this article and based on the analysis that we've covered over the last couple of years, I would argue and quite beg to differ that, Oklahoma has this sort of progress for everyone, and when they discriminate or take out affirmative action from the very people who actually need it. I think that Tulsa's Black Wall Street tech scene would have been the economic driver for that area, because that's where investment is going to go into. They're not going to put investment into a mom and pop shop. They're going to put that into vertical high growth markets and products that come out of that situation, out of the tech scene. So how else do you take a highly educated community and put them to work outside of a tech scene? I don't get it.
Well, I mean, so the whole
Yeah,
notion
for volume is very low, complex.
okay, wait, I'll contact
Yeah,
you. I come
yep,
back.
yep.
Okay.
I'll move on to the next item on the docket. All right, let me know you can see my screen. We have Renaissance Man on the panel as well. Welcome.
Hey, what's up, Mike?
Hey, nothing much, bro. What's going on with you?
Nah, nothing much, nothing much. Now on that last article, before you go to this one, I was just gonna say, like with DEI in general, I know it's under attack, but I'm kind of just like, if you look at you could argue the world, but you look at the United States and just how it's diversifying. Even if you try to kill this effort, like at some point, it's just gonna be problematic. Like I'd argue, uh, if you say DEI is basically doing nothing, in my opinion, it'd almost be better to leave it alone, because then you could just be like, well, there's DEI programs versus like, if it's actually doing something and you kill it, you're just going to end up with like what 10, 20 years from now, a workforce that's very doesn't represent America, products that aren't really going to be catered to the real consumer base, and it's just going to create more problems down the road. So I think it's going to be inevitable regardless, like whether it's under the DEI banner or just people are just like, hey, if I'm trying to sell to, a market that's majority people of color, like common sense would say you need those people having inputs, whether it be on the marketing, the product design, what those people are interested in, all those things.
Yeah, you have a point. Let's go to the next item on the docket. This is from about Amazon, Amazon.com. AWS plans to invest $10 billion in Mississippi, the largest capital investment in the state's history. AWS investments will create at least 1,000 jobs and support new educational trainings in the Magnolia State. Amazon is proud of our partnership with customers, communities, and government leaders in Mississippi. Since 2010, we have invested $2.3 billion in the state, including 5 fulfillment and sortation centers, 4 delivery stations, 5 solar farms, and a wind farm in a Whole Foods Market location. Additionally, 74 Mississippi schools receive STEM education and career exploration courses through Amazon Future Engineer, our global philanthropic education initiative. Today, we are excited to expand this commitment. Amazon Web Services plans to invest $10 billion to build 2 data center complexes, making the single largest capital investment in Mississippi's history. In coordination with the Madison County Economic Development Authority, AWS will establish multiple data center complexes in 2 Madison County industrial parks, which is projected to create at least 1,000 new jobs in the Magnolia State. Quote, since 2011, AWS has invested more than $108 billion in its infrastructure across the U.S. to support customers of all kinds and across all industries in their digital transformation, said Roger Weiner, AWS Director of Economic Development. Building on this, we are excited to expand our operations in Mississippi through this planned $10 billion investment, which will tap into the growing tech sector across the state to create new, well-paying jobs and boost the state's new gross domestic product each year. We look forward to delivering new workforce development opportunities and educational programs that support the next generation of talent across the Magnolia State. We continuously invest in communities where Amazon and AWS operate by supporting local jobs, generating economic growth, providing skills, training, and education, and unlocking opportunities for local businesses and suppliers. As part of today's announcement, we are also making the following commitments to Mississippi communities: support for STEAM awareness and learning opportunities for K-12 school systems, including We Build It Better, a set of industry design curricular experiences and resources that engage middle school and older students in a work-like STEAM environment, stocked with industry-grade tools. We Will Build It Better, a career awareness program for elementary classrooms to engage students in a work-like STEAM environment, complete with array of industry-grade and tools and technology. Support for Mississippi community colleges, technical schools, universities, and workforce development organizations to design, develop, and grow training programs and work-based learning opportunities that prepare job seekers for high-demand career paths in the growing field of data center construction and operations, as well as the broadband expansion industry. This includes awareness programs such as fiber optic fusion splicing workshops, information infrastructure workshops for educators, training and support for community colleges and universities to implement fiber optic technician and data center operations programs, support for education institutions and independent learners with free, ready-to-learn cloud computing curriculum that works backwards from employer demand for specific skills and roles in cloud support, software development, and data integration, among other in-demand cloud computing skills. This builds on AWS commitment to provide free cloud skills training to 29 million people globally. It's funny, people in the manosphere will go to a will go to certain trainers in the space who don't necessarily even have content of their own. Today's announcement expands on Amazon's existing footprint in the state. For example, Amazon is the largest corporate purchaser of renewable energy in Mississippi. We've recently expanded our renewable energy footprint in Mississippi with the state's first utility-scale wind farm located in Tunica County. The Delta Wind Project will include 41 wind turbines powered by winds from the Mississippi Delta and will be a dual-use operation where the agricultural land will continue to be used for farming rice, soybeans, corn, and wheat under and around the turbines. According to the developer and owner operator AES, the project is expected to bring tens of millions of dollars in consistent tax revenue to the county and school district and is expected to create nearly 300 jobs during peak construction. $2.3 billion invested in Mississippi since 2010, including infrastructure and compensation to our employees. $2 billion added into the state GDP based on Amazon investments. 7,500 full and part-time jobs, 9,000 indirect jobs, 1,000 independent sellers. So this is where we are right now. Now, I happened to be on a panel late last night, and it was a lot of conversation around Jackson, Mississippi. Okay. I brought up Jackson as an example of where infrastructure is badly needed and something that you cannot run away from. You cannot build an economic center without proper infrastructure. What you see coming from Amazon in this $10 billion investment into Mississippi is the exact infrastructure that drives economic growth in the community.
Well, I mean, according to some people, if if Jackson State would have kept Deion Sanders,
yeah,
and HBCUs would have came together and paid this guy, this all would have been taken care of. But yeah, Amazon steps in to save the day.
Really?
Yeah. Jackson, Mississippi happens to have the largest Black population in the country, hands down, at 83+%. And so I used it last night as an example of where structural racism impacts people, Black people on the ground, and you cannot run away from that by, divesting from Black women. And so the question was posed, well, what kind of businesses are going to be started in Mississippi and who's going to invest down there? I'm sorry, Amazon disinvested $10 billion. Hmm? You want
Well,
to talk
wait,
about that?
wait. What was the question, Mike? What
The
kind of businesses?
Yeah, what kind of business would drive the economic growth in Mississippi once the infrastructure is put together, right? The
Oh,
the bad water and the high-speed broadband, fiber optic, etc. Well, according to Amazon, it looks like these infrastructure gaps are going to be closed with their $10 billion of investment.
Well, I was gonna say, well, number one would be the businesses that address those issues. Or am
Hmm.
I or am I wrong?
Say that one more time.
Businesses that address those issues?
well, I was,
Partnerships called
yeah.
PPP, right? Private public partnerships.
Well, I mean, really, you're going to have any sort of, because really in Mississippi, you have two problems. You have infrastructure and you have an educational problem. So you don't have the physical infrastructure and you don't have the educated populace, which if you fix the infrastructure, you could actually, fix the infrastructure. I'd say the third thing is probably the politics as well. If you could get some level of just like a moderate level of politics, like kind of like a North Carolina type of politics, there, like there'd be so many opportunities because you're talking about lots of land that's able to build and develop, whether it be facilities or communities. You're talking about the Gulf where you have ports, so you have that angle, as well as the agricultural as well. So there's tons of there. It's just it's got so many policies that are just sort of stifling. Like I said, infrastructure, basic things that aren't met that you really can't exploit those things.
Yeah, yeah. And so to answer the question from last night, here's your answer. Here's your answer right here. $10 billion going into Mississippi, largest investment in the state's history. Black people are going to benefit greatly from this. Actually, which brings up another point. Let me bring up the next item on the docket.
Well, I was going to say real quickly too, Mike. What he was suggesting is almost the ironic thing about that is he was trying to almost propose an economic model that already kind of exists in the South. Because if you know anything about Southern states, you already know that like things like football already carry a ton of weight. So if you're a football coach, you're already seen as God. Look at Nick Saban retiring. So I mean, I'm kind of like, I'm surprised someone would even try to propose that model when it's like, okay, you can look at these southern states that love SEC football and look at how the infrastructure is going. That's not how you develop an economy.
Didn't we do a whole live stream on that Renaissance?
Not specifically on the
not I mean, but I mean,
yeah
talking about, we literally spoke to that.
yeah
It
exactly.
wasn't specifically about that, but we covered that. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah, let me get to this next item on the docket. This is from shinemycrown.com. Dr. Nashley Cephas, this woman is transforming abandoned land into multi-million-dollar tech hub. We've covered this before, but just want to put some more emphasis on this recent update. Dr. Nashley Cephas is on a mission to uplift her community by creating a $25 million tech hub for aspiring entrepreneurs in Mississippi. The Jackson native, who serves as an applied science manager for Amazon Artificial Intelligence, purchased 12 abandoned acres in 7 buildings near Jackson State University on September 11th, 2020. Her vision is to support the next generation of entrepreneurs and provide them with the resources and opportunities they need to succeed. Dr. Cephas believes in the importance of giving back to the community, which played a significant role in shaping her career. She is passionate about introducing more people to the world of technology and making it accessible to everyone. In a recent LinkedIn post, she expressed her dedication to helping underserved communities reach their full potential in STEM fields. Dr. Cephas understands that this mission is not without its challenges, but she remains determined to see it through. Throughout her career, she has been a successful engineer, previously leading Amazon's visual search team in Atlanta and serving as the chief technology officer for PartPick, a startup that was later acquired by Amazon. Education has been a cornerstone of her journey as she earned a PhD from the School of Electrical and Computer Engineering at the Georgia Institute of Technology in 2014 and obtained her bachelor's degree in computer engineering from Mississippi State University. As the founder and CEO of the Beam Path, a nonprofit organization, she continues to pursue her vision of sowing technical expertise to nurture networks and empower communities. Her latest endeavor involves revitalizing downtown Jackson, Mississippi, by developing the 12-acre property into a thriving tech hub. Over the next 5 years, Dr. Cephas plans to transform 7 of the abandoned buildings into a photography studio, electronics lab, and makerspace. Additionally, she envisions creating restaurants, a grocery store, and innovation center and apartments on the site. Her ultimate goal is to establish a self-sustaining village where people can live, work, play, and eat. This project is her way of turning the impoverished streets of Jackson into a vibrant and innovative community. Dr. Cephas acknowledges that many do not expect positive change to come from Jackson, and she believes it's up to the community to build a future for those who will follow. You know, I had this conversation last night, and I'll say this. This is how you build a community, a fourth industrial one. The Black Brain Trust has been very vocal about building, about Black people getting involved in the fourth industrialization. And now you have an example right here. We discovered a couple of articles ago about Black Wall Street in Tulsa doing the same exact thing. Why is this so difficult for Black men to understand, but everybody else seems to get it?
Mike, so if we were to do fourth industrial real estate live stream, guerrilla farming live stream, pick your micromobility live stream, and if maybe 2 or 3 more, and if you were to add those together, essentially what she's doing is a synthesization of like those 5 or 6 live streams. Right, there's like literally 5 or 6 that I can think of, and if you were to extrapolate all of them together and you were to put it together in a community plan type of thing, it mirrors what the hell she's doing right here.
Yeah, I mean, according to some people, you got to get the family together. You got to get, you know, people to get. You got to get women to act right. Seems like she's acting right. In fact, like she is acting exponentially better than some of the men who claim that they have their stuff together. So I don't get it. Renaissance man.
That was too much of a good point right there.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say, I remember us covering this a while back. It'll be interesting to see how it progresses. Once again, something like this you can do more of. It becomes much more difficult because once again, infrastructure, and it becomes a chicken and egg problem. If you can actually, get the water situation fixed, do something about the actual road and things like that, then you have an opportunity to, turn around these depressed areas. But a lot of times, due to just really the flight of capital and people from these communities, you're talking about years of deferred maintenance and decaying infrastructure. But someone like Amazon coming in, making investments, as well as that's one of the ways to get the initial sort of attraction of people. And if you can almost get like a snowball effect of it, it makes this a lot easier and a lot more possible. Because I think you saw this a lot in places like Detroit as well too. After the financial crisis in 08, a lot of people trying to go back in, basically say, take advantage of low depressed properties and basically trying to rehab them, create entrepreneurial spaces, maker spaces, just really trying to build a grassroots community, which I applaud. And a lot of times, unfortunately, if you go to a lot of the thriving cities, everything's just so expensive. It makes this type of sort of grassroots type of visionary type of effort hard to do. So I applaud her. I hope she does well. Hopefully it snowballs from here and actually can spur movement around the country as well.
Nagone?
To be quite frank with you, I've just listened to it. I have to totally agree with Renaissance Man sitting right there. He's absolutely dead on it. So I'll go to the next one. I think that handled it right there.
Hey, Mike, are you muted?
Yeah. Next item
Okay,
on the
there you go.
docket is from WCVB. Fund to boost mass marijuana business gets first deposit. Let's listen to this clip.
Yes, the fund is empty, and it's a huge problem, and people should be paying.
Well, that was 5 Investigates Brittany Johnson back in August talking to a former member of the state's Cannabis Control Commission about a fund that's supposed to increase equity in the marijuana industry. More than 5 months later, we can tell you now that fund is no longer empty. The state announced today that the first deposit has been made. The Cannabis Social Equity Trust Fund is designed to help entrepreneurs from communities most harmed when marijuana was illegal. The first deposit totals $2.3 million. The state says it'll go to license holders with what it calls urgent financial needs. Other programs are expected as funding increases.
When the sun goes down.
So there you have it. One of the first of its kind, a cannabis fund for social equity has been funded now. Black men who are disproportionately impacted by the drug laws of the 80s and 90s are now going to benefit from this fund. Complex, what is your thoughts on this?
Ooh, a lot to say, given that, Mike, I was actually planning to do a cannabis live stream this weekend. So I don't know if we have more cannabis topics. If not, I'll definitely spark that up tomorrow, pun intended. I think this is a very good step. I think it's a very good step because I would say that the barrier of entry in terms of various businesses that one can create within the cannabis industry, the concepts and the ideas and what you want to do doesn't really cost that much. The issue is the barrier to entry has always been expensive. Okay. It's always been the barrier of entry into the industry that's expensive. The actual source product and all of that, not so much. So this goes a long way to assist in the overcoming of the barrier of entry into the market. And I think that is what is most key.
All right. This is from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution report. Atlanta needs to create 2,000 startups a year to be top tech hub. The figure comes from a new report outlining how the city can be a top 5 tech ecosystem. In the next 3 years, about 2,000 tech startups will have to be launched in Atlanta annually for the city to become one of the top 5 tech ecosystems in the nation, as measured by venture capital funding, according to a new report conducted by the Boston Consulting Group. The authorities estimate this is the number of new startups necessary by 2027 to bring capital to the region, create thousands of jobs, and scale the ecosystem into the upper echelon of tech hubs. It's an ambitious goal that the city is currently far from reaching. In 2022, Atlanta produced only 158 startups, according to the report, and the city currently ranks 12th in the United States in VC funding. There also are concerns of misconceptions about the region's livability that hold Atlanta back, the report said. Quote, if we create the right environment, then within Atlanta, to us, seems quite reasonable that we should be producing that many startups net a year, said Parmeet Grover, managing director and senior partner at BCG. He has been studying this issue for the past 9 years and was one of the lead authors of the report. The study is based on based on more than 50 interviews with stakeholders across the region in an analysis of multiple quality of life and business metrics and 11 case studies of different cities' approaches to entrepreneurship and innovation. Atlanta's current tech scene is well known for more under the radar technology like payments processing, marketing, cybersecurity, and software that helps companies operate. The city is sometimes referred to as Transaction Alley because an estimated 70% of all global financial transactions go through companies headquartered in the region, according to the Georgia Department of Economic Development. The city also counts MailChimp and Calendly as two of its big homegrown startups. The former was acquired by Intuit in 2021 for $12 billion, and the latter was recently valued $3 billion. Atlanta has also attracted more major corporate offices from Google, Microsoft, Salesforce, and other West Coast players that have expressed desires to tap into the diverse engineering and technology talent graduating from Georgia Tech, the city's historically Black colleges, and other area universities. And Metro Atlanta has a sizable corporate community with 17 Fortune 500 company headquarters. Big corporations often invest in and buy services and products from startups. As those smaller companies gain scale, those same big firms often acquire these emerging companies, providing an exit for founders and injecting capital that might be used again in the startup ecosystem. Becoming a top 5 hub is a major goal of Mayor Andre Dickens, who established the city's first Office of Technology and Innovation last year. Quote, Atlanta has a lot of tech jobs because we have a number of great companies here, but we want to increase the amount of investment, Dickens told the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. The venture capital is where we're lagging. How many times have we said this before? Some of the reasons Atlanta's tech ecosystem isn't in the top 5 is because of the broader perception of the city's livability and local universities not playing a large enough role in generating new startups. According to the report, Atlanta universities produce more than 13,000 tech graduates every year, and Emory University and Georgia Tech have nearly research expenditures exceeding $2 billion a year. Yet they lag behind peer institutions in the amount of that research that is translated to patents. Additionally, the entrepreneur support system is too widespread, and women and minority founders aren't equitably represented. From 2019 to 2022, 94% of Series A funding in Atlanta went to white founders, though the region is only 43% white, the report found. Let me read this to you again. From 2019 to 2022, 94% of Series A funding in Atlanta went to white founders, though the region is only 43% white.
Yeah,
We're talking
those numbers make sense.
Well, I mean, structural racism doesn't exist. We don't have a DEI problem. We have a act right problem.
Yeah, and Mike, if you can please elucidate, where does Keisha fall into this as far as stopping you from getting that? I'm just asking the question because I'm a little bit confused on that as well. Go ahead.
I'm still trying to gather my bearings on that, but I want to make sure that I'm putting emphasis behind this. From 2019 to 2022, 94% of Series A funding in Atlanta went to white founders, though the region is only 43% white.
Part of that I already know is you have because I was talking to some people at my company who another brother who works actually in the venture capital office in my company, and he was just saying, that he's been pushing and trying to get them to go and look in other places because he's just like, hey, there's only so many founders that you can fund out of MIT or Stanford, wherever. But that's part of it is if you look at Georgia Tech, I believe it's less than 10% Black. So the first thing they're going to go and look and do is go to try to invest in the founder in Georgia Tech, and it just sort of that becomes sort of the bias as we go for the big names versus actually doing the groundwork and actually making sure that everyone in every crevice who's actually looking to get money, get funding, give a platform to hear their idea. Now, I will say I used to live in Atlanta, so I know a little bit about it. I had a coworker. She went to Spelman, and I think they still have this program. They do have basically like almost like a bridge program where you can go like basically do your undergrad like general classes at a Morehouse or a Spelman. I don't know if they do it for the AUC as well. But and then you can go to Tech and get your whatever engineering degree that you want to get while still maintaining being that HBCU student. So they do, that is one good thing, is that you can go to HBCU route and get your degree, but if you're looking to I guess capitalize on like the Georgia Tech name, you can still get that while still going to an HBCU.
Let me finish reading this. Grover and his colleagues believe addressing these gaps starts with what is initially being called the Startup Mill, a proposed public-private partnership, we just talked about that earlier, PPP, of tech stakeholders that would have a physical presence and, quote, would be the catalyst that brings the key stakeholders oriented in this common goal of becoming top 5 and doing everything it takes, Grover said. BCG will be an integral part of the mill, which is still in the very early planning stages. Alongside the consulting group, the Georgia Tech Foundation and the City of Atlanta are some of the initial members, though more will be added. Grover also hopes to establish an investment fund with the startup mill. Though discussions are still ongoing about the entity structure, Grover said the vision is to potentially raise $300 million for their first fund and BCG be a limited partner. BCG employs more than 1,000 people in the metro, and a number of their clients are large Fortune 500 companies and governments. They conducted this research pro bono and are helping implement some of the recommendations to give back to the community where they work, according to Grover. So here's the deal. Okay, we've been talking about this in this space probably since the beginning of our inception on in the Black manosphere. The access to the monies. Where's the monies at?
The mugger.
Yeah, where's the dough? So,
the dough ski.
Yeah, everybody wants to pretend like, oh man, if you just get her right, man, everything will just be, everything will work itself out. No, this is a structural issue. Okay, this is a structural issue. 94% of Series A funding, we're talking 7 figures, goes to 43% of Anglo-Saxon people. Those numbers are disproportionately out of whack.
How do you explain that? Yeah, are you saying that if you get Keisha right, that this is going to change? I mean, where's the thought process and what these people are talking about? You got to get, you guys who are talking this stuff, you got to get off the bullshit. We got to get down to what's really going on here. We got to stop messing around and talking crazy. We have to start thinking straight out here and looking at what the facts are. These are the facts. These are the numbers. This is what's going on. Let's get with that. All this other stuff like that doesn't mean anything. Let's get with what's really going on here.
Now here's why I disagree with this. Because you only need one startup to become a unicorn that would employ a lot of people. Let's take Nokia, for example, out of Finland. Nokia is probably the biggest employer out of Finland. When you talk about Samsung in South Korea, Samsung had a lot of patents in place and technologies as a tech company, but they employed thousands of people. One company did all of this. Okay, one company, BlackBerry in Canada, employed thousands of people and was a dominant player in the 90s and in the early 2000s. And so the idea that you need 2,000 startups, in order to be a viable tech hub, I have to disagree with that. I mean, their findings are their findings, but I think that it's a bit extreme to say you need to have that many startups, in order to become a top 5 tech hub. No one ever questions the legitimacy of Sweden's tech sector, or even Finland's tech sector, or even the EU's tech sector. I mean, the EU thrives off of Volkswagen, Mercedes, BMW, all of their car makers. Bosch, one of the top, supply chain providers, stakeholders, plays a significant role in employment. I mean, I don't understand why you have to have so many startups in a predominantly Black area to say that, it's top 5. I don't agree with those findings, but I understand what they're trying to say.
Well, I think, Mike, one thing I'd say is that some of it may be reflected in there's such a high rate of failure in startups that they're just thinking by sheer numbers, okay, if 10 startups open up, only 3 are going to really survive. So I think they may be coming at it from that approach.
Okay.
Not saying you're wrong. Not saying you're wrong. I just think they could be taking, that's more of a VC type of approach of just, hey, we're just gonna make the assumption that if we invest in 10, 3 are going to survive. Maybe one of them, really becomes a unicorn, and they're playing that game. Versus some people do try to take the approach of, hey, let's be really, 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 really strict on, what we support, and try to have a really, really high success rate. Almost like think about was it Y Combinator, and like only 3% of companies I think that apply get into their accelerator. So there are people who take that, and then obviously if you have a criteria that's that stringent, you're almost picking the winners in that regard of, hey, we'll have a higher output if people were successful. So I think part of it can just be 2 different philosophies.
Yes.
Well, I'm gonna say just to that, Renaissance. I mean, there's a little more, not to disagree with anything you're saying, but I think there's a little more nuance to that, especially if you're talking about the startup sector. You see, there's ideas that are meshed or aligned with like larger developments, right? And they let's say that they're add-ons, for example, or they're startups where they're kind of maybe say market disruptors, right? And so you're looking at 2 different investment strategies. So for example, Google, oftentimes what they would do is they would invest in applications and technologies that are very much in alignment with so it's very easy for them to look at a startup and say, yeah, we could probably use something like that, right? Versus a startup where you come in as a market disruptor, right? See, so now that takes a larger investment and commitment. Not only that, but a long-term investment as well, right? See, so from, let's say, a VC incubator angel investor position, right? It's really about what the startup is about. What are they doing? And that's the reason why, from a startup aspect, I would always press that you do something that literally serves a market, something that is an added or an addition to something that's already going on. Okay, that's your easiest way into that, because there's already kind of like a built-in use case. You know what I mean? And that's when you talk about these things with the investment class, you're going to get a myriad of positions in terms of investors. Some dudes are like, I want the next big idea. I want to hit on something. Others are just like something that's in alignment with what they already got going on. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I think the bigger problem for me is the disparaging numbers in terms of who gets funding, who doesn't. That part needs to be highlighted more so than the 2,000 startups a year to get on board. Because if you're not funding Black startups now, I mean, having 2,000 more startups doesn't do anything. It just
doesn't
makes
do anything.
Because you haven't addressed the gap issue. And when it's in a state like Georgia that wants to work against the collective interests of Black people from a DEI perspective and affirmative action, I don't know if that really solves the problem. I think that you would need major stakeholders within federal and state government and local municipalities play a significant role and not really hoard the resources just for college graduates, because you have a lot of people who dropped out of college that have really great ideas too. I don't see why we're ignoring that demographic of people just because they haven't graduated from Georgia Tech or some of these other major D1, D2 institutions. And so I think there's a lot of equity gaps, just being created just by the report itself.
Well, yeah, and Mike, not to disagree with anything that you're saying. I just wanted to highlight that, from a VC and angel investment, all that kind of standpoint, right? That's kind of how they look at startups, right? And that largely points to like the success rates of startups, let's just say, right? Because there was a data point that was mentioned with regards to that. And I'm saying that, well, typically, startups that are relatively successful, have some sort of association or an alignment with a pre-existing market. And what they're doing is they're filling a gap or a solution versus market disruptors, which has a larger fail rate. That's all. That was the only point I wanted to make.
Go ahead, Brother Hans.
I was going to say the other thing I was going to say too of Greater Georgia is I think Stacey Abrams sort of hit on this a little bit when she was running, was that it's got a very business friendly environment, but the quality of living, you sort of run into that too with like someone even in Atlanta where like you have this sort of world class city, but because it's in a red state and because the politics of being in a red state, you sort of still run into these weird issues of they had a thing, I think, over about a month ago or something, where they had some big glitch in their like welfare system. So like people who were looking for some sort of public assistance and were on it, like they basically couldn't have access to it because the system had a glitch. And it took, I want to say, a couple months to even try to get this thing straightened out. So, that's kind of an example. You sort of see this, sort of think of the same thing of if you had a city like Atlanta in Mississippi, the politics are different, but you kind of end up with these problems where the state ends up, because of its, far right policies, end up undermining even its cities from a quality of living standpoint on certain politics. Or think about, Medicaid expansion or something like that with Obamacare, and just, health disparities, hospitals closing, your hospitals being overcrowded. All of those kind of come into play of, things you don't have to necessarily deal with if you're talking about, a Boston or a New York or a San Fran or even a Durham, because you have an element of progressive politics in New York, and not in New York City, in North Carolina as well, and that's sort of the thing that sort of undermines Georgia as well. That's kind of alluded to, but it's not said explicitly in that article.
All right, let me jump to this next item on the docket. This is from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Tech firm launches training program for Atlanta Black women founders. The Pathway to Success program will provide training and mentorship to 150 local Black businesswomen. Sage, a global finance, human resource, and payroll software company, has just opened applications for new mentorship and training program for 150 Black women entrepreneurs from any industry in Atlanta. The program, Pathway to Success, will offer a year of hands-on support and then 3 years of membership to the Boss Network, a digital career development platform for women of color, and a program partner. Another partner is business financing company Swoop. Applications close on February 5th. Sage launched the program during a time when diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives are being targeted by certain conservative groups. Atlanta-based venture capital firm Fearless Fund is one of the first and most prominent targets of a renewed conservative push to dismantle affirmative action in corporate America. A lawsuit targeting a Fearless Fund grant program for women founders of color is pending in court. Sage said, in the face of these legal challenges, they always want to follow the law, but they also want to do the right thing and break down barriers. Quote, for us, it's not necessarily about Black women specifically or any specific group. It really is about serving communities at large, said Renee Mathewson, Vice President of Corporate Affairs for Sage North America. Atlanta is the North American headquarters for Sage, which is based in England. Sage established its presence in the city in 1999 after acquiring Peachtree Accounting. It has an office in Lawrenceville and will soon occupy 2 floors of the new building under construction at Ponce City Market. Pathways to Success was born out of a report Sage released last fall that surveyed 40 Black businesswomen in Metro Atlanta about their challenges and outlooks on their companies. The report recommended tailored support at each stage of the business, including catered mentorship, community development initiatives, and improved financial access. Specifically, Metro Atlanta businesses should be more intentional in providing resources to Black women founders, the report said. Now, Sage will be providing some of those resources. Quote, women entrepreneurs in the Black community is a very important community to make sure that we are leveling the playing field. Aziz Benlamek, Sage's North American president, told the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. In Atlanta, a new report found that women and minority founders aren't equitably represented. From 2019 to 2022, Boston Consulting Group found 94% of Series A funding in Atlanta, typically the first investment capital a company raises after the seed and angel investment, went to white founders, though the region is only 43% white. Sage has also opened applications this week for a new round of $10,000 grants for 25 Black women entrepreneurs from across the United States. 7 of those grants will go to Atlanta-based founders. Last fall, the company also began helping train young people by partnering with Morehouse College's computer science department on a series of lectures about what students will need to know to be successful in tech. Sage's chief technology officer and chief risk officer have given lectures. Sage also plans to have 4 interns this summer from Morehouse. The goal is to grow the pie for tech students and tech graduates, said Tracy Owens, Sage's director of U.S. Public Affairs. There's no requirement they'll come work for Sage, but the hope is they will. This year, Sage will also be working with the city's Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative, which is an incubator for female entrepreneurs. The company will provide software to participating business owners and will host discussions on business financing in partnership with Swoop. Renaissance Man, what's your take on this?
No, this kind of shows that what you're going to need more of if you want to sort of create some help correct some of that disparity. The one thing I will say is, that number is actually probably worse than it looks when we start talking about the funding disparity, because I just thought about this. If you actually look at the demographics and like probably the age of people most likely to be entrepreneurs is going to be, I know a lot of people think about people in their 20s, but it's probably going to be people like 30s to probably like 50, that age group. And we've talked about this, I think, here and on other panels about, if you look at the white population in general in the US, it skews older. So when you start talking about the amount of funding that's, going to white founders, and you start actually probably like looking at like their share of the population of, who are like the age group, and actually look at that, it's probably even worse. So you definitely need things like this, as well as more access to VC funding to help correct the disparity we've talked about.
All right, let me get to the next item on the docket. This is from Inside Higher Ed. Technology students in Africa bolstered by grassroots AI. Amid South Africa's perfect storm of few universities, racial inequities, and economic disparities, AI students find support in a not-so-grassroots movement. Molderdrift, South Africa, the University of Johannesburg, might have selected Joburg rather than the Bush for the most recent South African Conference for Artificial Intelligence Research focused on human-centered AI. After all, the city would have offered convenience for attendees from around the continent and beyond. Also, humans are decidedly not at the center of the Gauteng province red dirt landscape. Here, rhinos, giraffes, hippos, zebras, baboons, antelope, warthogs, ostriches, wildebeests, hyenas, and cheetahs rule. But the cradle of humankind, paleontological site with the world's largest concentration of human ancestral remains is a short drive from away from motor drift. Hominin fossils found there date back to 3.5 million years ago. On that spot, Homo erectus first used fire 1 million years ago under the sun's relentless glare. Humanity's long evolutionary timeless field palpable. Finding a responsible AI path forward for all living things feels urgent. This is interesting. In North America, big tech drives AI, argued Avishkar Bichukhan, a South African research engineer who works at Google DeepMind in London. In Europe, government policy largely drives AI, he said. But in Africa, the current boom is driven by what many here call grassroots AI. It's a broad church, said Vukasi Maravant, associate professor of computer science and ABSA chair of data science at the University of Pretoria. He was speaking of the self-organized continental network of AI students, professors, researchers, industry practitioners, entrepreneurs, and even enthusiasts who offer mutual homegrown support for accelerating AI in Africa. Given the perfect storm of too few universities, racial inequities rooted in history, a critical mass of low-income students, and a fast-moving global AI landscape that waits for no one, Africa's grassroots AI movement fills in important gaps. Quote, we stretch our institutions in multiple ways, Maravat said. Anybody can help you at any time. There's no university, private sector, business, or government on this continent that is as far as ahead as grassroots AI. But what started as grassroots effort has since attracted attention from the global tech companies like Google, Apple, and OpenAI. Now the challenge is to ensure that African AI researchers are, in the words of a prominent gathering on the continent, not only observers and receivers of the ongoing advances in AI, but active shapers and owners of these technological advances. The current moment, while fraught, holds significant promise. This is interesting because when you take it in America, when you look at fourth industrialization, in the Black community, it is a grassroots effort too, but we don't really look at it that way. We look at it as, you know, from a capitalist perspective, we just look at how much money we can make off of it, not necessarily how are we developing it, how are we curating artificial intelligence and procuring the resources to make it scale. I think that, you know, we could probably learn a lot from what the Africans are doing on the ground.
Well, Mike, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that the word startup is synonymous with grassroots when it comes to technology?
No.
No?
No. Because you can be a...
You know what? You're right. You're right. Because grassroots, and I'm going back to remember that magazine, Grassroots Motorsports. Do you remember that magazine from back in the day?
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, you have like motorsports and then there's grassroots. And grassroots does have a different connotation. No, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
South African universities hold 8 of the 10 spots on Times higher education rankings of African universities, but the country's 26 universities can absorb only so many students. With a population approximately 61 million, that's 1 university for every 2.3 million students. That ratio hints at why many here consider university admission on par with winning a lottery. Among South Africans between the ages of 25 and 64, only 8% have earned bachelor's, master's, or doctoral degrees, according to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. Only 1% earn master's or doctorates. In contrast, half of U.S. adults have completed higher education degrees facilitated by nearly 4,000 American universities. Our universities can't absorb that many students, said Maravat, who earned his computer science doctorate at Rutgers University in New Jersey. But South Africa's higher education challenges go beyond available seats. The universities do not serve racial groups in proportions consistent with their presence in the population, a holdover from apartheid. Though South Africa is 80% Black, only 16% of Black South Africans enter higher education compared with 55% of whites, according to 2020 report. That's sad. There's a lot of history, especially with a population that has gone through colonialism. Remember I said, people self-organize and say, this is not okay. We need to fix it. We can't wait for somebody else to give us permission to exist. Talk about governance, man.
That's a pretty heavy statement right there.
Yeah, I do think this is really good though, because like I was looking at, ironically, a post this weekend on I think it was CBC was actually calling out OpenAI about diversity on their board, you know, and kind of the implications there. And you know, while I applaud it, part of my mind went to, hey, you don't want to be on the back end of this, you know, saying, hey, there's a lack of diversity. You got to have something in place that you know, make sure that we're active players, not just on boards, but like I said, active players in developing and deploying this technology. So this is awesome to see. It would be nice to see, and I'm sure there's the same initiative stateside as well.
No, I think that they're jailbreaking the university because they don't have access to it, right? And so think about an iPhone a few years ago where you wanted to sideload applications and whatnot to it. You had to jailbreak the iPhone because you didn't have access to root, or you didn't have the ability to administer the device in the capacity that you wanted to. That's where jailbreaking comes in. And I think that what they're doing is jailbreaking the university because they can't get access to it in the numbers that is proportionate to their demographics. So South Africa may be something. I think they may be onto something. They're creating a more open source AI initiative before, you know, without open AI. See, open AI has a lot of funding from Microsoft, $10 billion. South Africans don't have that. Okay. They're lucky they get $10 million, right? Everything has to be piecemealed on the ground by them and for them. And so they're looking at this totally differently than how folks in the United States look at this. I think this is really, really, really interesting. You can really build a community right off of what they're doing. I got to look more into this. This is on some other stuff now.
No, I was gonna say it kind of what you're describing too, Mike, is it kind of downscales and speeds up the development cycle from the standpoint of your economy, because you know once you have electricity and Wi-Fi, all you really need is access to a computer versus, you know, traditionally when you're looking at economic development, it's kind of been like, hey, we need a university or we need a school and we need access to the library and books and all these things. That cuts that barrier to entry way down. If all you really have to do is give people a stable Wi-Fi connection, and really technically you don't have to have like a constant power source, you know, because you have batteries obviously in your device. If you can find one and then, you know, recharge your device every, you know, 5 to 6 hours, it brings the development cycle so much faster to people.
Renaissance, I would say one thing to add to that is, you know, cloud access. You add that cloud access. Yep.
Yeah, let me read this piece here. Boopchan's concern is grounded in dark reality. In 2021 and 2022, for example, OpenAI, a U.S. company, contracted Kenyans through a third party to work as content moderators training ChatGPT. The workers reviewed text and images, including those depicting scenes of violence, self-harm, and murder, rape, necrophilia, child abuse, bestiality, and incest. According to The Guardian, many of the workers who were paid $1.46 and $3.74 an hour were traumatized and later fired. Because of the geopolitics, we can't walk, Maravit said, we have to sprint. Now, see, I understand geopolitics from that statement, but I don't understand geopolitics when you talk about Houthis firing missiles at cargo ships and how that's going to help Black boys read. I just find these things to be very dubious. The higher education community here has had to grapple with what Marivett called the lived reality of the South African student. Since 2018, the government has offered free university tuition and a living stipend to university students whose families earn under 350,000 rands, approximately $19,000. Most South Africans qualify for the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, according to the World Bank, but that has had unintended outcomes. Quote, for a lot of kids, getting that stipend makes them the breadwinner at home, Marivett said, adding that acquiring high-level AI research skills takes 4 or more years. It's very hard for them to stay an extra year or two for a master's degree. Now imagine asking them to do a PhD. Those with AI skills can earn more in the industry than as students or faculty in academia. Quote, my colleague in statistics has classes with 1,000 students, Marivett said. Then people quit and it becomes crazier. Students who clear the access and financial hurdles sometimes discover that their institutions offer the insufficient resources and faculty expertise to support their AI interests. That's where grassroots AI offers a vital assist. A faculty member on the front line identifies resources or experts at another university, nonprofit, or private business somewhere else in the country or continent. Anything to ensure the student stays on the AI research path. Grassroots as a term and phenomenon was an open secret at the conference. The 2 South African computer scientists employed in industry, for example, mentioned serving as the primary dissertation advisors for several African computer science doctoral students focused on AI. The individuals who asked not to be named, given the non-traditional arrangement, acknowledge that both the universities and their employers are aware of their substantial but uncompensated work guiding African AI students towards degree completion. These Black folks, boy, I tell you, man. Yeah, I'm not going to read this whole thing, but, it's in the docket and description beneath the video. I think this is really, really interesting of how they go about actually building community in the 4th industrial age. I have to go back and read this again. This is this is on another level.
Dope, man. That's dope, dude. And that's the whole thing, dude. It's like, we keep trying to stress that the 4th industrial angle on everything allows for kind of like a leapfrog in infrastructural development. You don't necessarily have to do the brick and mortar, and I'm throwing that in air quotes, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't require brick and mortar first, right? It involves tech infrastructure first, and then you can tailor brick and mortar to that.
Yeah. No, because you have to galvanize your human resources as a natural resource. You have to look at them differently, because you don't have a whole lot of bandwidth and opportunity to do what other countries are doing. And this is the same problem in the Black community in the United States. You don't have access to the same capital that Anglo-Saxon folks have. So you have to work at this differently. You and I have talked about this many times, turning libraries into incubators.
Thank you. It's like you got to rethink things, dude. It's like you said, it's one thing, Mike, when we get to this next article, it's one thing to just throw some money at it if you got it. But when you don't have it, you got to rethink what you have.
Yeah.
Simply put.
Yeah, that's why, I stress federal and state government investments into Black neighborhoods or Black communities, because that's the only way you're going to have access to guaranteed capital. And so when I say things like that, then they call me a communist. But that's exactly the most the most robust way that you're going to get access to the capital that private investors are not actually willing to gamble with. with the Black community. You know, we talked about this some weeks ago, maybe the first of the month, that Sam Bankman-Fried and Elizabeth Holmes, you know, built, you know, venture capitalists out of $7 billion, and nobody bats an eye at this. You know, when it comes to Black folks, you know, trying to get access to the same capital, they're told no.
It's a whole issue, and it's just like, dude, you have to check. Yeah, I know you're talking about. You talked about chicks in Theranos too.
Yeah, Elizabeth Holmes.
Yeah, Elizabeth Holmes. Yeah, dude.
Yeah, and so it would behoove a lot of folks in this space. Let me say this before we go on to the next article. You have to start working collectively with Africans on the continent. There's no other way around this at this point. I think the writing is on the wall with all these anti-DEI legislation, anti-affirmative action legislation, and the lack of access to high amounts of capital. I think you are shooting yourself in the foot by not extending the battlefield back to the continent and start galvanizing resources over there, human capital over there, to start collaborating on fourth industrial opportunities and doing research. I think folks are missing out on a lot of opportunity not working with Africans on the ground. All right, let me go yeah, go ahead.
It's crazy. It's crazy that we're not doing that.
We should be in Brazil too. We should be in Brazil.
Absolutely.
We should be in Brazil working with them folks down there as well. All right, this is from Good News Network. Ghanaian woman entrepreneur is revolutionizing transportation, building electric bikes to improve air quality. I just came from there last month.
That is some nice kit. I can already see it. That's some nice kit they got.
When I was down there, I saw them out there riding those. Wow. I think I had texted you. I told you about that.
Yeah.
The micromobility market, yeah.
Yeah, no, I got those texts, but I'm looking at this picture. They got some nice little fat wheel joints right there. Yeah, nice kit.
Yeah, when I was in Accra, yeah, I saw those folks out there riding those. So a Ghanaian English entrepreneur has designed an electric bike from the ground up that's transforming short-range transportation in her home country, proving that problem solving in Africa can be done in Africa by Africans. Let's talk about it. Her company, Wahoo, assembles each bike by hand, and they can travel up to 80 miles on a single charge. This means that a delivery rider for Glovo or Bolt can comfortably cover a whole day's work without refueling. Anyone who's visited Accra, Ghana, in the dry season will remember the incredibly poor air quality. Remember I talked to either Unigone or Complex, I forget who it was.
Me. I remember it was me. You were telling me about it.
Yeah, I was in the back of a what do you call that? Bolt. That's their version of Lyft. Bolt. And I passed out in the back seat because the pollution was so bad. I just couldn't take any more of it.
Yeah, you were telling me about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I fell over. It was just so bad. I didn't understand how they live like that. Yeah, but the pollution factor is huge over there. Anyone who's visited Accra, Ghana in the dry season will remember the incredibly poor air quality. Poor roads means that cars are stuck in the second and third gears, and old cars traveling in second and third gears means plenty of extra car exhaust. Poor roads also mean exposed dirt, and exposed dirt means fine-grained dust. Combined with a lack of rain, the smog, dust, and car exhaust makes the air in the parts of the capital unfit for human health. Man, listen, let me tell you, man, I don't know how they do it. I literally passed out in the back of a boat. I thought I was gonna die. My head was bobbing around. I thought, like a bobblehead. I was like, what is going on here? We were stuck in traffic during rush hour, and I was like, this ain't it, man. But I woke up, man, at my hotel. The driver woke me up when I finally got there. I was like, how long was I out for? You was out for a while, bro. Man, good thing I keep my wallet, man, in my jammy, man.
I'm about to say, bro, yo, man.
Crazy. It was crazy. Wahoo bikes help alleviate all three of these problems, and despite her English nativity and education, the bikes were designed and manufactured in Spintex Accra. Quote, by introducing electric bikes into Ghana's transportation ecosystem, we're not only providing a greener alternative, but also offering speed and convenience. Lobby told the Mirror. Our bikes are a testament to how service delivery can be seamlessly merged with environmental conservation. Valley Lobby is a true inspiration, and besides her transportation company, she got her start in the Ghanaian economy in sanitation. She holds a chieftaincy title as Gundugu Sabatana, given to her by her previous chief of the Dagmon traditional area in the northern region of Ghana. She has 3 children, holds a double major in economics and sustainability from 2 separate universities, and has visited 59 countries. Talk about passport chick. Man, out here doing it. Getting her start in northern Ghana, she founded the social enterprise Sama, a mobile toilet and sanitation company, now boasts 300,000 clients. During her travels around the small, densely populated country, she also recognized that transportation was not only a problem, but offered a real potential for eco-friendly solutions. It took us 2 years to effectively design a bike that we thought was fit for the African road. Then we connected with Jumia and other delivery companies to get started, she told the Mirror.
Jumia is for those of y'all that don't know, that's literally like the Amazon, Uber of that area. Jumia is like the biggest player with regards to the fulfillment sector like that.
Yep. Currently, I have over 100 bikes in circulation, and we give the bikes on a work and pay basis directly to delivery riders. According to Lobby, each driver pays about 300 Ghanaian cedis, or about $24 per week, to use the bike, which can travel 24 miles per hour and hold over 300 pounds of weight. The fat tires are supported by double crown front, double spring rear suspension. The bike's also guaranteed by the company's proprietary anti-theft system of trackers. Only a single bike has been stolen, and it was quickly located and returned to the owner. Complex, I had this conversation with you when I was on the continent, man, that exploding over there. Okay, they're not playing around, and this is an example of what I'm talking about. I saw them when I was over there. I just didn't know how they were getting these things, but I saw these folks riding around. In fact, a lot of my food was delivered to me by folks on these e-bikes.
Bro, I told you, man.
And so
what they're gonna do, they're gonna replace all of those Indian gas bikes that keep breaking down with this type of kit right here that can eat that terrain.
Mm-hmm.
Straight up.
Yeah.
This is the solution.
Yeah, because it's not uncommon. Yeah, it's not uncommon in Ghana, in many African countries, that you can go from a paved road to dirt in 10 seconds. That's just the reality that you live in. And the roads are going to be bumpy as crap.
Yeah, you need bikes like this to traverse that, not those Indian bikes that keep breaking down every 80 kilometers, dude. This stuff is way.
No, those bikes don't necessarily.
No, well, go ahead, Mike.
They're not necessarily using Indian bikes in Ghana, but they are using a lot of old Hondas and stuff like that. I don't know where they get them from, but
no, dude, those are all. I'm telling you,
these
bro,
bikes are not.
Those are all dude. They're clones. They're clones of Hondas. That's what floods it. Those aren't even original. Like those motors are CTs. They're either they're everything from a CT50 to a CT150. Okay, but then the Indians make clones of it, Chinese make the clones of it, and the fact of the matter is that they're not original Honda stuff at the end of the day, right? Honda stopped making those years ago. That's how you know it's not Honda. But I'm saying that those bikes right there that you got the picture up right there, look at those. They'll eat that terrain.
Oh yeah, they do. Oh yeah, they do. Yeah, I've seen them. But the thing here is, in this space, Oh, you guys talk about micro machines over there. Well, guess what? This passport chick with dueling degrees has visited 59
59
countries,
countries.
you know, and it's
Oh,
about to
shit.
revolutionize her country. You got
Look
guys
at
who
them,
can't even
look at them cats,
revolutionize their own
Mike. Look at them
space.
cats. Look at them cats. They look like the cats who do the e-bike and e-scooter mobs in LA and New York. Just look at them, bro. They repping hard.
Looks almost like the obviously these are e-bikes, but like the dirt bike kids you see in the cities.
But Renaissance,
Yeah.
that's all changing, dude. It's becoming e-bike rides. It's e-bike and e-scooter rides. Dudes like that, just like this right here, just like that.
Well, they utilize vehicles differently than in the United States. Like, in most Philly places, four-wheelers and riding dirt bikes on the street. That's for, fun. These folks live and die by this. This is how they make their money. Right.
But
And
Mike,
so the
Mike,
ability to
that's
deliver
but Mike,
goods
that's the
and
thing. But that's the thing, right?
Mhm.
We're starting to see that it's mirroring, dude. The same thing is happening here. The same thing is happening
Yeah.
here. I always send you like ESA's videos, Wilson's videos. It's the same thing where these dudes are
Mhm.
mobbing around on e-bikes and scooters and stuff, doing deliveries. They also are hosting like, rides in town and all that kind of stuff. So like what's funny to me is that this is mirroring what's even happening here in the US. Like these cats right here, if I look at this picture, dude, I think they could be in New York for all I know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'm looking on their website right now. Like you can actually go through a consultation and start like if you want to order really anywhere. So, obviously this is Ghanaian focused and focused towards the country. But if you want to get one and get it shipped to the States, you can do that too.
Yeah. No, I think if you're going to go to Ghana, I think you should get one of these. I think you should support Black businesses. I think that is the reality here. For me, I mean, looking at the tires tell me everything that I need to know. That shit is top notch right there. That ain't no cheapo stuff. That's some well thought out, well researched bike. And so I wish it was all wheel drive, but it's not. It's only a rear hub. And it goes 80 miles, which is more than sufficient. The capital, Accra, is roughly the same size as like maybe Washington, D.C. At best. And so
Oh wow, so it's
you can get
relatively
around
small.
fairly easily. But yeah, for the capital, yeah, because there's so many other areas that function outside of Accra immediate, like Accra, the airport eats up most of Accra. Like in terms of industrialization, like that's their bread and butter. And so everything else just extends further out from there. But you can get around Accra on one of these just fine with, on a single charge. And so and 24 miles per hour is actually relatively fast. I know it sounds slow to some people,
No,
but
that's fast, dude. It's
when you're
fast.
on an e-bike or e-scooter, yeah, when you're on an e-bike or an e-scooter, that's relatively fast. Especially if you're going downhill. It's just relatively fast. And so
Well, well, Mike,
I
not
gotta
only that,
upload
but
some of those
it's just
videos
that,
that I had from
yeah, no, I was gonna say, dude, if you want to, I've seen plenty of them, dogs. If you want to show it, you can improve it. But with the whole because what it would show
Mhm.
improve is that because the vehicle is smaller, you move through traffic faster. Those
Yeah,
videos that you
that's
upload, like
another thing.
literally prove. Yeah, I was gonna say that's why they're efficient because you just keep going.
Yeah. And plus the knobby tires make it easy for you to jump over sidewalks. And I mean, you have to really go to Accra to really see how um dilapidated some of the infrastructure is from a civil engineering standpoint. It looks like somebody got started building something and then they just stopped in certain parts. And so it's not uncommon that you'll go from nice, smooth paved road right into a dirt road, about 1,000 feet down. That's just the way it is. And so looking at the way the bikes are designed, it looks like they're going to be, it looked like it was well thought out.
Yep.
And having a helmet makes a heck of a lot of sense because um,
It's not all
etiquette
paved
over
roads.
there in terms of traffic. Well, from a traffic etiquette standpoint, the way drivers drive, like they don't care, like they'll go over a double yellow line. They don't care. And if that's the case, if you get hit, man, you're on your own. And so I see a lot of opportunity in the micromobility sector in Africa. Ghana, I think that's an emerging sector right now. I think that she is on the right path. If I had to say, even my e-scooter, if I took that over there, I would blow a lot of minds over there. People would be looking like, what the hell is that thing?
I'm telling you, dude, like, yo, this is it. I'm telling you, this is it. Oh, well, not telling you. For those of y'all listening, we're trying to tell y'all. We're trying to tell y'all. That's what I want to say. I'm sorry. Dude, this is the new wave. Did you
Mike,
see them cats? Did you see them cats right there, dude? Like, come on, man.
Yeah, Mike, I was gonna say there's I was looking on the website too. There's an app as well she has. So I'm not sure if it's just linked up with the scooter or just like a way of contact, but she even has an app.
No, the app. So the app is for your specific vehicle to track, and then get battery readings and stuff like that through your phone.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that app development on the continent, man, is they're one for one with the United States. Some of the apps that I see over there being developed, whether it's Glovo or Bolt or what do you call it? Not Clover. Menus Africa. Those are top-notch apps. I still keep those apps on my phone just because I want to support them, but those are top-notch apps. Now, when I was there last month, Uber of West Africa in the Middle East said the West African region, ECOWAS, is a $1 billion economy in 2025. $1 billion. $7 billion economy for rideshare and micromobility by 2030. This is coming from Uber. Okay, it's a Black woman who works for Uber. So you can sit up here and say, well, man, I just don't think there's a lot of opportunity over there.
Bullshit. Wow.
Telling you have no idea what you're talking about. You have no idea what you're talking about. They're investing heavy over there. Okay, infrastructure-wise, they're investing heavy. That's why you're starting to see e-bikes and e-scooters pop up. I saw some some e-scooters. I don't know where they got those e-scooters from, but they were tearing up them roads, man. They were zipping up and down them with, doing 35, 40 miles an hour, man. And it's just the reality. That's how they were getting down over there. And I was there last month. So anybody who want to argue that, Africans are lacking in innovation, you have no idea what you're talking about. These folks are on another level. All right, let me get to the last item on the docket. This is from MIT. Building technology that empowers city residents. Kwasi Afriya, a senior majoring in urban planning and computer science, wants to create cultural hubs that are inviting to everyone. Kwasi Afrifa came to MIT from his hometown of Accra, Ghana in 2020 to pursue an interdisciplinary major in urban planning and computer science. Growing up amid the many moving parts of a large, densely populated city, he had to often observe aspects of urban life that could be made more efficient. He decided to apply his interest in computing and coding to address these problems by creating software tools for city planners. Now a senior, Afrifa works at the City Form Lab led by Andreas Silvestuk, collaborating on an open source Python-based tool that allows researchers and policymakers to analyze pedestrians' behaviors. The package, which launches next month, will make it more feasible for researchers and city planners to investigate how changes to a city's structural characteristics impact walkability and the pedestrian experience. During his first 2 years at MIT, Afrifa worked in the Civic Data Design Lab led by Associate Professor Sarah Williams, where he helped build sensing tools and created an online portal for people living in Kibera, Nairobi, to access the internet and participate in survey research. After graduation, he will go on to work as a software engineer at a startup in New York. After several years, he hopes to start his own company building urban data tools for integration into mapping and location-based software applications. Quote, I see it as my duty to make city systems more efficient, deepen the connection between residents and their communities, and make existing in them better for everyone, including groups which have often been marginalized, he says. Afrifa believes that in urban settings, technology has a unique power to both accelerate development and empower citizens. He witnessed such unifying power in high school when he created the website GhanaBills.com, which aggregated bills of parliament in Ghana, which providing easy access to this information as well as a place for people to engage in discussion on the bills. He describes the effect of this technology as a democratizing force. Afrifa also explored the connection between cities and communities as an executive member of Code for Good, a program that connects MIT students interested in software with nonprofits through the Boston area. He served as a mentor for students and worked on finding nonprofits to match them up with. Sharing African languages and cultures is also important to Afrifa. In his first 2 years at MIT, he and other African students across the country started the Mandla app, which he describes as a Duolingo for African languages. It had gamified lessons, voice translations, and other interactive features for learning. Quote, we wanted to solve the problem of language revitalization and bring African languages to the broader diaspora, he says. At its peak a year ago, the app had 50,000 daily active users. Although the Mandla app was discontinued due to lack of funding, Afrifa has found other ways to promote African culture at MIT. He is currently collaborating with architectural graduate students T.J. Bawoya and Courage Kabodo on A Tale of Two Coasts, an upcoming short film and multimedia installation that delves into the intricate connections between perceptions of African art and identity spanning two coasts of the Atlantic Ocean. This ongoing collaboration, which Afrifa says is still taking shape, is something he hopes to expand beyond MIT. As a child, Afrifa enjoyed writing poetry. Growing up with parents who love literature, Afrifa was encouraged to become involved with the theater and art scene of Accra. He didn't expect to continue this interest at MIT, but then he discovered the Black Theater Guild, BTG. Since then, the BTG has held 2 productions in the past 2 years, Nkrumah's Last Day in the spring of 2022 and Shooting the Sheriff in spring 2023, both of which were written and directed by Afrifa. It's been rewarding, very rewarding to conceptualize ideas, write stories, and have this amazing community of people come together and produce it. So I want to highlight, this is what a technocrat looks like. Okay. The urgency, the desire to codify urban planning into a technological perspective to make things simpler. That's how technocrats think. So I know there's a lot of people who don't like the idea, oh, I just don't like technocrats. Well, you know, this is what a Black technocrat looks like.
I never had a conversation with one. That's what's funny.
Yeah. All right, last item here before we get up out of here. This is from Stanford.edu. Venture capital funds led by people of color face more bias the better they perform. Stanford researchers find. In the evaluations of high-performing venture capital funds, professional investors rate white-led teams more favorably than they do Black-led teams with identical credentials, a new study finds. I mean, we've discussed this in the past, and Renaissance was, kind enough to provide this just now. Let me read the first paragraph, then we can get up out of here. When a Black-led venture capital firm has an impressive track record, it encounters more bias from professional investors, according to new research by Stanford scholars. In a new study led by Stanford psychologist Jennifer L. Eberhardt, in collaboration with the private investment firm Lumen Capital, researchers found that when venture capital funds are managed by a person of color with strong credentials, professional investors judge them more harshly than their white counterparts with identical credentials. These findings, set to be published in August 12th, in Proceedings of National Academy of Sciences, suggest that funds led by people of color might paradoxically encounter more obstacles after they have proved themselves to be strong performers, said Eberhardt.
Oh no!
The
Yeah, you
Morris
don't
M.
say.
Doyle, who is the Morris M. Doyle Centennial Professor in the School of Humanities and Sciences. Quote, "It's not simply a pipeline problem," Eberhardt said. "African Americans who are most qualified, those with the best track record, are getting blocked the most." Co-authors on the paper include Hazel Rose Marcus, the Davis Brock Professor in the Behavioral Sciences, Sarah Lyons Padilla, a research scientist at Spark, a program in the psychology department at the School of Humanities and Sciences, co-directed by Eberhardt and Marcus. Yeah, we don't have a whole lot of time to read this right now, but this is, Renaissance. You can put this in the chat.
Yeah,
and YouTube, that would be beneficial.
Yeah, no, I just, like I said, I actually stumbled across this. I was looking at a Substack. His name is, let me see the guy, his Substack, but he's a Black VC, and he was basically putting together a list of resources out there that he basically kind of almost like crowdfunded with Charles Hudson. So he has a Substack, and this is one of his posts, and I just happened to be going through it today, and it brought that article that was listed on there, just highlighting the fact that, despite even if you do outperform, do well, it's almost like that raises the suspicion even more against you, which is wild to think about when you have all these people who make the arguments that we live in a capitalist society. Decisions are made just purely business-based decisions, and it's like you have people who are I think the article talks about like there's like $60 trillion in assets under management, and if you have that sort of bias there, it's like, wait, people try to sell this as these are the most rational, logical thinking and investment professionals making the best decisions, and I'm like, well, if you can't even look at two teams that have the same credentials and you judge one better than the other one based just on their skin color, like how good is really the investments and the returns we're getting? Which it makes sense when you start looking at data and research, when it says, hey, when you have diverse teams, when you have Black people, when you have people of color involved in these decisions, the outcome is better. But then everybody wants to rail against DEI. So.
No, Renaissance, I'll tell you like this. If we were to really think critically, we've kind of faced the same thing. Mike just mentioned it maybe about 5 or 6 minutes ago, espousing emerging industries like micromobility, for example, right? And not only have we discussed various subject matters related to that realm, we've also got video uploads showing that we're hands-on in it. And what did we receive as a result of it? Ridicule, right? So it's part and parcel in all actuality, and we've experienced it here in real time on this platform.
Yeah. No, it's like I said, it's not surprising when you think about it, but it just shows you. And I think we talked about, the McKinsey report that talks about how, racism costs the U.S. economy like $1 trillion every year. Like, that just sort of reinforces why.
Indeed. All right. Thank you all for joining us.